Long time no see, Cameron.
Yeah.
Voice. Let's go. Voice FM.
So, welcome along to another episode and of the Disability Life podcast. And today I'm actually joined by a disability activist and blogger, Cameron Wood. Welcome along, Cameron.
Thank you for having me.
That's well, pleased to have you on. So you've got a variety of disabilities, let's say. You seem to be collecting them all. But the most common two, which people would have heard of, was cerebral palsy and hydrocephalus. You're also visually impaired. Is that right as well?
Yeah, no, I'm slightly visually impaired. I can only see six. I can only see about 6 meters.
Okay. And is there a brain condition in there as well, or is that
Yeah, so hydrocephalus is a condition where excess fluid is on the brain. So I've got a device in my head that will drain that away from my brain because it can't do it for itself.
okay? So those in the memo. Um, so cerebral palsy. How many were you born premature?
Yeah, so I was born at 25 weeks and weighed about half a bag of sugar.
Goodness. Okay. That's quite early.
Yeah, it is. It's about 15 weeks earlier than everybody else should be.
Yeah, absolutely. You managed to get on out the other side remarkably well. I mean, obviously, you're
Yeah.
but tell us a bit about your early life growing up as a kid in Hertfordshire. What was it like?
It was interesting. I didn't. I managed to navigate the early stages of life pretty well. In So I went to primary and secondary school as a mainstream student. It was only when I started in further education, so college, that I actually moved away to Coventry and studied at a specialist college for people with disabilities.
And so, growing up as a toddler, I mean, oh, were you able to walk? Was it always wheelchairs?
I I've always been in a wheelchair. I've never been able to walk unaided. Um, in my younger years, I could walk around 10 steps with the support of mobility aids and other people. But apart from that, I've always been in a wheelchair.
Fair enough. And I mean, obviously, in the last few years, you've come into your own, really. There isn't much to touch on. It only is than what I've been researching. But so schools in the local area, I mean, all mainstream, no sort of special units or
We do have a couple of special schools, one primary and one secondary school. But that is about it for Herefordshire. Most of the other ones are mainstream secondary and primary schools.
and for you, you went to the mainstream ones or
Yeah, so I went to a couple of the ones that are mainstream. So as I said earlier, it was only really when I started in further education, that's when I moved away from Herefordshire and went to a specialist college for people with disabilities uh, um, who have young people from across the nation attending.
yes, absolutely. And have you heard of have you heard of a school and college called Toulouse at all?
Yeah, so when I was looking for a specialist college to attend, I travelled all the way down to Hampshire. visited Trelaws, but because of the direction that I wanted to go in, it wasn't the right establishment for me to be at. I wanted somewhere that focused mainly on sports because that is something that I'm passionate about. So I managed to find a college that had a focus on sport and supporting young people with disabilities to fulfill their potential and within that field and try different types of sports.
Fair enough. And sports been in your blood for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm obviously a massive Aston Villa fan and have been for the last 15 years, but that isn't really the sport that football isn't really the sport that I'm interested in. Have competed in dressage for a number of years, but that all came to an end in 2016 when I kind of realized that I was at the stage in my life where I had gone as far as I could within the sport. So decided enough was enough, and it was time to hang up the saddle and move on to pastures new. And this is where my kind of campaigning really came into its own.
Fair enough. So you were a keen swimmer.
Um, I I did in my younger days when I was at primary school. Did do some something that's called hydrotherapy to get my muscles moving in warm water. So so I haven't really been in a swimming pool for a number of years now because all of that really came to an end when I left primary school because because there was nowhere in the county apart from one or two locations that offer hydrotherapy because it's not really something that um, Herefordshire does in the sense of yes, it's done by physiotherapists and other organisations, but if you're looking at mainstream sites such as swimming baths that would do something like this in other parts of the country, Herefordshire isn't one of those that has like a mainstream swimming bath that would heat their swimming pool once a week to allow people with disabilities to go and take part in hydrotherapy. Yes, there are disabled swimming sessions on the local leisure pool, but they are more centered around cold water, which for a lot of disabled people, that isn't what they need because it doesn't get their muscles relaxed and it doesn't allow them to actually get the therapy that they need because the water is too cold for them.
Um, and London 2012, you got selected to be a flying torchbearer.
Yes, I wondered if that might come up. So back in 2012, just before the Paralympic Games, 33 host cities were selected to have what was known as a torchbearer. So they were so they were allowed to have a flame in the build up to the Paralympic Games. Herefordshire put in a bid. They were selected as one of the 33 host cities. They then put out a call for somebody to go and collect the flame from Trafalgar Square in London. And I was selected as a 16-year-old, sorry, as a 15-year-old at the time, to do that. Let me start again. So I was when I was selected, I was 15, but as the event happened, I had just turned 16 because it was in that summer. So as a 16-year-old, I carried the Paralympic flame into the Royal National College for the Blind on horseback.
And that was a pretty good achievement at that point to be able to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And a couple of years ago, so when Birmingham hosted the 2022 Commonwealth Games, I repeated that um, adventure just about 10 years on and got to carry the Queen's message about 200 meters as one of 9 baton bearers as the message made its way to Birmingham for the games.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's good. Um, you were saying on horseback, you were into riding at that point. Um, Actually, before we get into that bit, tell me briefly about the vision impaired. Have you always been slightly vision impaired from?
Yeah, so I've always had a slight visual impairment. When I was growing up, I used to wear glasses. I went to the opticians for a regular checkup one day, and I was told that my vision doesn't change whether I wear glasses or not. That's when I kind of took the decision. I'm at the point in my life where I don't really want to wear glasses, so haven't done since I was kind of in secondary school.
Okay. We're gonna move on a little bit. So, um, it was it during um going to see Villa play, and of course Villa now is doing pretty well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
back in 2016, and they've probably in the championship and going up and down, up and down, up and down, sort of thing, between championship and Premier League. That um, it, this whole busy activist sort of started. Would you say
Well,
someone actually sat on you, almost sat?
Well, it was almost. Well, that was about 18 months ago. But in answer
Okay.
to your question, my activism work really started when I recognised that the county had 2 roads that were fairly busy with cars and lorries. That members of the disabled community needed to travel along so that they could visit disability aid shops and things like that. So I decided to start lobbying Herefordshire Council. They didn't really recognise that these roads were an issue. So I just kind of put it to bed for a little while, went and did an apprenticeship with the organisation. And when I completed that, I then thought something really needs to be done about these roads. So began lobbying them. They again still didn't listen. So I was actually forced to enlist the help of the media to highlight the issue of the 2 roads in question. That then forced Herefordshire Council to come and actually interact with me and see that it was an issue. On the day that they met with me, they actually witnessed a high performance car going past me that was millimeters away from hitting me. And this is when they decided that something needed to be done. It was done, and they've now spent around £68,000, I think it is, on making improvements to 4 locations in the city, in, in the way of creating drop curbs on these roads.
And that was 2016, wasn't it? Well,
Well, it was around. It was really around from 2016 to 18, but in 2018 that's when the work really got going because I kind of finished working with young people to get them heard and thought this is time for me to do something for myself now. Let's go and see how far we get with the pavements because they are effectively an accident waiting to happen. And this is where that all really kind of got going. But it wasn't easy, I will say that. It took me about 6 years to complete that campaign from start to end. And then, as we've already touched upon, I then turned my attention to the accessibility of railway stations because I've been traveling. I At that point I'd been traveling to matches at Villa Park in Birmingham for the best part of maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years by rail, and it it was always a difficult experience because you're not always supported when traveling by rail, um, in terms of the assistance that is offered by either Network Rail if you're traveling from a mainline station, or rail operators if you're traveling to somewhere that is either classed as unstaffed or got high volumes of passenger assistance requests going through them. So it was actually on the 18th of February 2023 when I first interacted with the team at West Midlands Trains, when I wrote to them and said, this has been happening for a long time now. Something needs to be done, otherwise it's going to stop people with disabilities wanting to use the rail network to attend matches at the home of Aston Villa. They then came back and said that they had put a number of different measures in place to improve that experience, whether that was redoubling the efforts of station staff, so they put in more staff to support with assistance on the platforms. They repositioned them so that they were in strategic locations, so that they were there to help people get on trains with the use of ramps as quickly as they could. They also looked at the matchday advice that they offered to the disabled community who support the club in conjunction with Aston Villa. That didn't really change anything, so I then used the people at the Department for Transport to actually ask the operator to step in and say to them, this guy's come to us, he wants to meet with you to discuss the experience. Then in November 2023, I travelled with senior officials from the operator to Whitton Lane Station, which is just between Birmingham and Walsall. And it was at this station where I really showed them what experience I and others had faced when using the rail networks to attend matches. Then, whilst at the station during this initial meeting, I suggested that they considered trialling waiting spaces, which come in the form of blue and white boxes with the white wheelchair logo and the words for mobility assistance, please wait here, within those boxes on the platforms. They, much to my surprise, they agreed to this suggestion, and then looked at trialling the spaces at Whitton Lane, which is about a 5 to 10 minute walk away from Villa Park, and then Aston, which is just a few minutes down the line from Whitton. The trial was successful, so they then decided that they wanted to roll the project out to more stations, and this led to the likes of the Hawthorns, which is close to the home of West Bromwich Albion, and Coventry Arena, which is close to the CBS Arena, which hosts Coventry City matches and other events. Away from that, they've now rolled it out even further, so it's at stations that are close to hospitals and like rehabilitation centres, so that patients who are attending appointments at these centres can actually travel independently by rail to their appointments, meaning that they don't necessarily have to find car parking spaces or use other forms of public transport that might be unreliable. They can travel by rail with ease, as I say, to their appointments, which means that they can keep some sense of independence.
Absolutely. You're very professional and very precise, aren't you?
Well, to be honest, I'm so used to saying all of what I've said so many times over the last 18 months that it kind of just rolls off my tongue now.
Fair enough. I was going to say you can relax a little bit, it's not.
Yeah, no, it just, as I say, it just is something that I'm used to saying because I've said it so many times, because it's taken a lot to kind of promote the project, and what the operator in conjunction with myself have been doing, because we all recognise that this is making sure that the rail network that they manage across the Midlands is accessible to all, and it means that the 1,000 passengers that need assistance that they carry on a weekly basis don't have to fight for assistance because it's there because they can book on the passenger assistance app if they've got that, and if they're traveling from one of the stations in the region that has the accessible waiting spaces, they know that they've got somewhere where they can wait and they aren't going to be forgotten about by train crew and station staff.
Yep. I've had that a few times. So yeah, it was a bit.
I do sympathise for a number of years until I started all of this work. I used to have similar issues where you always got to a train station and you didn't know whether you were actually going to get on a train or not. And the other thing that I used to dread was being left on a train because your assistance failed, and then you would have ended up at the station where the train terminated.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard the story about Dame Baroness
Tanya Gray Thompson.
Ray Thompson getting stuck.
Yes, I have heard the story about when she had to crawl off a train about a year ago, and to be honest, that actually disgusted me because that shouldn't have happened in 2024. It shouldn't be the case. We should be actually able to travel with confidence on the rail network. And at the time, if my memory serves me correctly, she was 24 hours away from traveling to the
Oh,
Paralympic Games to broadcast.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's just shocking that she had to experience that day before a day before the world was meant to celebrate disability and inclusion on a global scale.
Uh, it's very ironic, isn't it? In that case, um,
Yeah, no, it is, and I remember thinking at the time, wow, this is going to blow the Paralympic Games into people's minds in the wrong way, just 24 hours before we're due to actually celebrate what should be um, a celebration of um, inclusion, but we're now having conversations around accessibility here in the UK for the wrong reasons, which was actually really disappointing to see because it just showed that the United Kingdom is so far behind accessibility, not just across the rail network, but across all forms of public transport. In some cases, you'll know that a few weeks ago, the Department for Transport's Select Committee released a report that said that public transport for those with disabilities is a national embarrassment. That is actually true because there have been so many occasions where I've either been left at bus stops or not been able to get on a bus because the driver hasn't been bothered to get out of their cab to put the ramp down.
mm, shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we shall get too bogged down on that at the moment. We've got other subjects to talk about. But a bit before that, you actually did you were talking about a bit about horse riding before, and did the flame torchbearer and you have
Yeah.
horseback. But going back a bit further, you actually got to the championships in horse riding.
Yeah, so I for a few years I qualified for both regional and national championships that are run by the Riding for the Disabled Association, or as they are known, the RDA. Their national championships are held at Hartbury College in Gloucester, which is a place that I hold close to my heart because I have had many experiences of either winning championships or coming within the top five of dressage classes if I was lucky enough to do so. So I effectively got to the top of amateur sport for those with disabilities if they horse ride. I would class the nationals for the RDA as that, um, which is which is something that I'm proud of because it shows that the disabled community can actually um, compete at the highest level of sport, regardless of their impairment, which I think also shows that we can be included in sport and we can compete with our able-bodied counterparts, albeit in our own way, but we have the opportunity, which also shows that we can be treated as one, which is something that I'm also passionate about. Everyone should be treated as the same, regardless of race, gender, disability, or race, gender, and disability, because as I've just mentioned, we are all people at the end of the day, and we shouldn't be treated as any different.
Absolutely agree. And we can move forward a bit now. The how was COVID for you?
So COVID was really good fun actually because all that people watching us are probably going to think, why have I just said that? But I'll explain myself now. So at the start, just about 3 weeks before Boris Johnson announced that we were going into lockdown, the first lockdown, I had just started my apprenticeship with Herefordshire Council. So I spent the first 21 days in an office, getting on with my work, enjoying life. Then a few days before we went into lockdown, the direction was given by the chief executive of the local authority for managers to send anybody home that was classed as vulnerable. Because of my disabilities, I was basically told to go home and continue to do my role, but from home. And then once I'd left the office on that day, I didn't really know what was going to happen to me. I thought, oh, this will be a few weeks and then I'll be back in the office. Unbeknown to me, a year later, on the final day of my apprenticeship, which was the 29th of April 2021, I returned to the building to hand my laptop and other things in. I had done a whole apprenticeship from home, and I was having meetings like we are now. So I was on Zoom or Teams, engaging with colleagues and tutors and things like that. So I practically did functional skills exams and or prepared for functional skills exams in maths and English and ICT online, from home, and then also met with my tutor for the course I was doing, which was a business administration level 2 qualification. I did all of that at home, or online, which was an experience. I thought, oh, I'm going to go and do an apprenticeship and I'm going to work in an office and get experience within the world of communications. That wasn't the case. I did all of it from the comfort of my bedroom, which was a crazy experience. I absolutely loved it because what I learned in the first 21 days whilst in the office was that it was incredibly difficult to actually get anything done, because every 5 or so minutes somebody was walking up to the area that we were in, because it was like an open office, asking something of the team. So you couldn't actually get any work done because every few minutes you were being asked for something by another department within the council. So working from home gave me the opportunity to knuckle down, effectively go into hiding and get the qualifications that I deserved and wanted.
Fair enough. That made perfect sense. Into what I enjoyed. And then uh, we, we- you touched a little bit on the qualifications about university and that and college. Uh,
Yeah.
What was the jobs you had, this apprenticeship, and then working towards making it more accessible? Is this now a full-time job for you?
So I've never actually been paid for had a job around accessibility, whether that's working on pavements or the rail network. I've always done it because I wanted to do it and I believed in it, and I could see that there was gaps in the accessibility in those two areas. So I've done it off my own back, and I've done it. All of the work that I've done has been for free with these organisations. I've done it because I wanted to make the pavement network and rail networks accessible to all,
Yeah.
because as I say, there is a gap in that area. I've never received a penny from either of the organisations for anything that I've done for them. It's all been for free off my own back, because I'm conscious that it doesn't just affect me, it affects the wider disabled community across the nation, and that's why it has to change. And that's exactly what I've delivered for the people of the West Midlands and Herefordshire.
Absolutely. What I meant to kind of let me rephrase that. To, so is this do you have a job at the moment or
um, I do have a job at the moment. One that I've been in for a few years now. I absolutely love my job. Um, and this is going back to what we were just talking about um, in the sense of my disability activism. If I could get a job in that field which advised organisations on things like accessibility and other matters relating to to people with disabilities, I would love that, because that's really what I'm passionate about. It's always been what I'm passionate about. Now I have the skills to go and campaign and deliver successful ones. I know that do, and I've always wanted that, but I've just never had the opportunity to actually go and have that opportunity, because there aren't that many opportunities out there for people like me who have a certain skill set that can actually make changes for our community, and those who aren't actually able to speak out and be heard in some cases by these organisations.
so going off on the back of that, um just after COVID, you got some awards coming your way. You actually in 2021 the you were doing is it
So in 2021, I won in, the England football and McDonald's grassroots. Let me start that again. In 2021, I won the England football and
McDonald's?
the yeah. So in 2021, I won the England football and McDonald's Rising Star of the Year, and that related to the work that I had done with Herefordshire FA's Youth Council and the Football versus Homophobia Youth Panel, both of which I chaired. So the Youth Council at Herefordshire FA created a podcast series where we looked at things like gender and discrimination, disability, sexuality, and mental health. Um, so we brought together not just members of the youth council, but other youth leaders from up and down the country who had been directly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and weren't able to play football because the FA had given the direction for them not to, based on what the government's guidance was at the time. So we decided that we wanted to keep youth leaders engaged with football, and this was the best way that we could do it. So we brought, as I said, we brought all these young people together and had really in-depth conversations around these topics. Um, and that led me to be nominated for the award. We then, because hate crime is something that I'm passionate about, decided that we wanted to record a podcast on hate crime. That was something that was an episode that was never released. So we recorded it and had all these really in-depth discussions. Jack Rutter, who has played football for England and Great Britain, he was invited along as a McDonald's ambassador to take part. He told us his story around how he got cerebral palsy, and then at the end, much to my shock, he revealed that I had been chosen as the national winner for the Rising Star of the Year award, which for me, as I say, came as a bit of a shock because I've never done any of the work that I have done for recognition. It's always been about improving the lives of young people, whether they have a disability or not, because that's what I'm passionate about. And as I've said throughout all of this episode, is that everybody, regardless of who they are in society, deserves to be heard.
Absolutely. And you say you're a disability activist and blogger, so you can sort of plug yourself in here. Where do you do your blogs, etc.?
So I use a piece of software called WordPress, which I found out about from somebody else who does the same kind of work as I do. They were using WordPress to blog about daily life. But that wasn't really where my first experience of blogging came from. When I was the business administration apprentice at Herefordshire Council, I was asked to write a couple of blogs by my manager around my experience of the pandemic and working from home, but also being the communications team's apprentice, because I was the first apprentice that they had ever had. She very quickly told me that I was good at it. So when I left the council in 2021, I then went away, had a think about everything that I had just experienced, because it was a very enjoyable experience, as I've already mentioned. And that is when I thought I could actually do something here with the blogging. So in April of that year, actually not long before I finished the apprenticeship, I decided to set up a WordPress blog just to see what would happen. As of now, I have blogged nearly 500 times, and I blog mainly about accessibility, whether that's on the pavement network, the railways. I also do blog about, like encouraging the government to take action on all things disability, whether that's improving the rail network, the pavement network. And you may already know this, Peter, but in 2023, I was invited by the then Minister for Local Transport and Roads, Richard Holdham, to meet with him at their offices in London and share with him my campaign and what I had achieved during the pavement accessibility campaign, because I wanted them to learn something from me, and they were keen to hear what I had achieved through the campaign, because it wasn't just a campaign that had been recognised by the media as being something good, but I had also actually been listened to by my local authority, who had acted on one person's concerns. They don't necessarily have to act on concerns of one person. Normally it's groups, but they listened to me, they acted. And as I've already said in this episode, they've spent upwards of £68,000 on improving the pavement network here in Herefordshire for those with disabilities. Since then, I've been trying to engage with the Department for Transport and the Minister for Rail because I'm really keen for the department for the DFT to hear my um, story around the campaign that I've done in getting accessible waiting spaces at train stations across the Midlands because to me it's really important that it's really important that everybody has the same opportunity to travel by rail. And right now, not every rail operator across the country is doing the same work. When I started doing some research around this, I contacted most rail operators. The ones that came back to me said that they were they'd either done something in the area or they were doing something, but they weren't. To me, it felt like that they weren't actually listening to stakeholders, i.e., the disabled community. But what West Midlands Trains have done is stood on a platform with me and listened. And this is why we now have 10 stations across the region, as I've already said, that have these waiting spaces, meaning that our community can travel with ease.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just talking about that bit, I actually went to Hereford once,
Yeah,
last year for the to go to the National Royal College for the Blind, uh,
yeah,
filmed blind football for the
yeah,
Disability Cup finals. That was in
yeah.
June and July, and it was honestly it was a very good area. And actually, I stayed in the Premier Inn that was just opposite Hartford United. And I know you're
Oh, yeah. I know which one you mean.
and I know you're a fan of that football club as well.
I used to be, when it was Hereford United, I used to follow them. Then when they died effectively in 2014 and were reborn as Hereford Football Club, that's when I kind of didn't really follow them anymore because Aston Villa were doing relatively okay at the time, so decided to go and follow them. Now, as you've um, already alluded to, we have played in two European competitions, whether that's the Europa Conference League and now the Champions League. The experience has been incredible as a football fan of a team that is achieving something, and I'm glad that I've been able to play my part in ensuring that our community who support the football club can travel by rail to matches with ease because they have the right to do that. They should be able to get on a train and off it again at the nearest station to the ground without being worried that they'll get stuck on a train and there'll be nobody there to help them. Because a lot of the stations around the football grounds have platforms that are small, meaning that about only 150 people can fit on them at any one time for health and safety reasons. So people like me get swallowed up, and this is why um, waiting spaces are key to ensuring that we're not swallowed up. Because I filmed a video where you can literally see a guy just about sit on me because he didn't know I was there. He was more concentrating on actually getting his train home. So he stepped backwards, or he went to step backwards, and if he had one more, if he had taken one more step, he would have been on my been on my lap.
Yeah, that story. There you go. And um, and then because I remember reading an article about Harvard Football Club, and
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was, but I remember a an England international player used to play at Harvard at the start of that. Oh, Gerard Bowden from
Jared Bowen.
Yeah, from West.
Yeah, so
Yes.
Jared
Yeah.
Jared did used to play for Hereford United. He has now gone on to captain West Ham United and has also played for England on a few occasions. And being a being a Herefordian born and bred, it's incredible that we can say that our county has a footballer who has risen to the dizzy heights of the Premier League and playing for his country.
And of course, very soon being married to the family of the Dyers as well. So,
Yes.
there you go.
Yes, I watched a video on social media the other week where Danny Dyer said that his favourite player was Jared.
Yeah.
Not just because obviously that's his soon to be son in law, but because in his eyes, Jared is one of the best players that the Irons have got, which is understandable.
Yeah.
And I get where he's coming from in that sense because Jared is good at what he does. I only wish that he would come and join a club in the Midlands with the same colours because I think that he would fit in quite well with our boys and maybe he would be able to achieve playing in the Champions League, for example. I know that West Ham did actually win the Europa Conference League, and that is something that Aston Villa failed to do. But then again, maybe the Champions League is where he wants to go, and I'm not too sure that West Ham would get there um, with the way that they are currently playing.
Yeah. And yeah, and you never know. Gerald might actually be watching this and going, actually, you're right.
Well, that would make my day if he did do this.
Yeah, that would.
Mind you, it would. To be honest, it would make my day if the likes of Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers saw
Yeah,
this because they are my two favourite Villa players.
I know. Oh. So it's not Marcus Rashford, it's not Asensio, it's not.
It's well, to be honest, Rashford, Asensio, Rogers, and Watkins, they are by far the four best players that we currently have in our squad. If we could keep Rashford and Asensio after their loan deals have expired, that would be brilliant because it would mean that we've got four players within our squad that are capable of keeping us winning, and that's all Villa fans want is we want to keep winning because we want to be in the dizzy heights of European football, but it's up to the club and whether they can afford those players. I hope they can because it's no secret that PSG don't have a place for Marco Asensio anymore,
Yeah.
and if we can have him, great. I think that would be incredible. As I said, I think that would be incredible to have those four players in our squad because we then never know where the team can go.
And I actually was up first thinking about of Tuchel's England reign, and
Yeah, yeah,
I saw Rashford. He did kind of like a very sort of like put his ball on the toe and flick it across the
yeah.
first half. But I was thinking, it's actually like the old Rashford's back, and him going to Villa has helped get his career back on track. Back on track.
Yeah, yeah, very quickly when he came on board at
Yeah,
Aston Villa, we started to see the old Marcus Rashford. It was almost like Unai Emery had actually sparked something in his brain to say, "Come on, mate, you can do this. You can get back to your best."
yeah,
I think it was from speaking to Manchester United fans. I kind of feel like he had potentially fallen out with Ruben Amorim, and he didn't want to play for him anymore. But as soon as he's come over to Birmingham and left Manchester, he's a completely different player. So he is hoping that he can continue scoring in the final run in of the season. But we just don't know, and hopefully, as I say, we do sign him at the end of the season so that we can have four of the world's best players, in my opinion, in our squad.
Absolutely. Let's go back into the podcast a little bit. I got a bit separated there. And so what's happening over the next few months for you then? What's on the
The
horizon?
next, the next few months, so I'll continue to work with West Midlands Trains on the accessible waiting spaces work. That work isn't yet completed. So that is my immediate focus going forward. And then once that has been completed in the next year to 18 months, I will then look at where I'm going to go next. In terms of the other half of this work, so getting the Department of Transport to engage with me and learn from what I've found during this campaign, is that I've written to Heidi Alexander, the Secretary of State for Transport, to kind of urge her to listen to my story and hopefully learn from it, because all I want is for the Department for Transport to learn from my experience, because they talk about putting passengers first and making the railways great again. Right now, from my experience, they're not actually listening to people like me. Yeah, they've listened to Baroness Grey Thompson, but that I believe that was because of her status, in the sense of she's a high-profiled person because of what she's achieved, and she obviously, as we mentioned earlier, had to crawl off a train just 24 hours before the start of the Paralympics. That kind of said to the Department of Transport and their ministerial team, we need to listen to her views on this. But hang on a minute. People up and down the country every single day have these issues. Why aren't they listening to us? We're the real stakeholders who are travelling by rail. They should be listening, and they need to, because then they're actually delivering on their manifesto promise of putting passengers first.
And going on to the last question now. What tips or advice would you give to people that has the same condition as you? What tips or advice?
So just be yourself. Go and achieve things in areas that you're passionate about, because if you do that, you will succeed in life, and you can make a positive change to society, whether regardless of where you live. Because I appreciate, as I've already mentioned in this episode, everywhere is different, and rail operators and transport operators and local authorities across the nation do things differently. So if you want something changed, go and reach out to the operators and get it done. They may not listen to you at first. If that does happen, don't be disheartened. Keep going, and you will get there in the end. I had to keep going when I've not been listened to at times during all of this work, but I've eventually got there, and look where I am now.
Well, that's brilliant advice. And once again, thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and we finally got there in the end after months and months of saying yes, I'll do it.
On Twitter, I've not been on Twitter for a while, or X, whatever the.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it changes its name a few times, doesn't it?
Voice. Let's go. Voice FM.